Okay, it is time for our presentations. And for our first one, I am going to call on Corey Williams. Corey is a lovely gentleman. I actually met Corey the day of the flag planting from the American Legion, and then again at the American Legion Hall at the SBA desk. So Corey, are you here with us?
I am, and good evening, Pacific Palisades. Again, my name
Hi.
is Corey Williams, Public Information Officer with the U.S. Small Business Administration's Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience. I wanted to go ahead and start out by saying that, my heart goes out to all those who are impacted. And, that's why I continue to make sure that for a federal government entity, we still make sure to have a presence no matter what. So any events that you feel that, that would be vital to keeping that word out and letting people know that there's assistance for not only the businesses, nonprofits, homeowners, and renters, I'm more than willing to be a part of. So I know that Sue prepared some pre-prepared questions. So what I'm going to do is just go through those pre-prepared questions first, and then after that, we'll see if there's any other questions that may come about. So the first question that Sue asked was, who qualifies for an SBA loan and what documentation is required to apply or qualify? So SBA's Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience not only offers assistance to businesses of all sizes, but homeowners, renters, and nonprofits. Now, what you may be aware of is that the deadline to apply for homeowners and renters actually expired on May 31st, and then SBA offered a 60-day what's called grace period. It wasn't an extension, it was actually a grace period that allowed homeowners and renters to apply. In this situation, I have come across a number of Pacific Palisadians and some in Altadena who, even during the grace period, did not apply. So, if you, as a homeowner or renter, did not apply, it is critical that you go to one of the state survivor locations. And the state survivor location closest to the Pacific Palisades is the one on Sawtell. But then we have the Disaster Loan Outreach Center that's at the Pacific Palisades American Legion, the Ronald Reagan Post, if I'm not mistaken. But here's what you want to do. You need to apply in person if you have not applied. And the things that you do not want to say is, oh, we didn't really know that SBA helped out homeowners, or we just wanted to wait out insurance. Our processing center will unfortunately decline that request because we did have a significant period of 60 days granted by the president, plus the additional 14 days that were added by FEMA. And then we had the 60 days. So if you have not applied as a Pacific Palisadian, you need to state an overcoming reason. So that overcoming reason could be that you had emotional or mental trauma. It could be that you were caring for a family member, or you even had existing medical conditions that, kind of precluded you from being able to apply for SBA at the time. But like I say, you cannot just say, I just didn't know and now I want to apply. So I want to make sure that, and the actual application will not be able to view online because the grace period has expired. So you have to go to the Pacific Palisades American Legion Post as well as the Sawtell location. Either one of those locations, we have great customer service representatives that are there. So to qualify, for those that that are homeowners, renters, business owners, and nonprofits who were impacted by the fires, they qualify. Now we're also looking at what's called the targeted idle program. And this is especially important for our Pacific Palisadian businesses and nonprofits. The deadline to apply for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program is October 8th, 2025. Now, I've been with SBA now 19 years. This is my first job out of law school. And essentially, one of the things that I always have to kind of teach many businesses and nonprofits is that the actual economic injury started immediately when the fire started. We grant a 9-month period for economic injury because we know that that period may, for some recovery, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months, some maybe a year or 2 years. So the one thing that comes about for many of those who are applying for economic injury, they'll wait to the very last minute and they'll say, well, Corey, we've had to we had to lay off employees because the books are tight, or we couldn't pay our Chamber of Commerce dues, or we actually had 4 or 5 contracts that fell through. Those are all signs of economic injury. It's very easy to see a building being burnt. It's easy to see water in a building. But the one thing most business owners and nonprofits don't see is that economic injury, laying off employees, not being able to meet the monthly mortgage or lease obligations. For nonprofits, let me give you a great example. For those nonprofits, they plan events months and months in advance. So if an event in the Pacific Palisades happened to be canceled or postponed, well, that created an immediate economic injury because that was postponed or canceled revenue that was anticipated by that nonprofit at that time. So it's important to be able to start that process for economic injury, even if you get the first unsecured 50,000 as a business owner or nonprofit. That may be all you need. But the key thing is that once you're actually in our system, you have up to 2 years to apply for increases in loan amount, whether that's a homeowner, renter, business owner, or nonprofit. Now, if you've capped out at the 500,000, we'll get into that a little bit later when I talk about mitigation and some of the other programs that SBA offers. So that should cover the first question. And then qualifications, we do look at credit history and we do look at repayment ability. Repayment ability, since we are a federal taxpayer subsidized program, we do have to have your most recent tax return. Does that mean we have to have your 2024 tax return? No, because right now you're currently under an approved IRS deferment until October 15th, 2025. So your most recent tax return for all intensive purposes would be your 2023 taxes. So those are the critical components. And then whenever you're a business, we may need personal financial statements. We may need statements of liabilities or any kind of other profit and loss, those other kind of documents. But we have great customer service representatives at the American Legion, Pacific Palisades Post, as well as the Sawtell locations. They will work with you. So the key thing is to continue to check your portal once you've applied. And then at that point, if there's any supplemental documents, stop by the Pacific Palisades American Legion Post. Second question. Please explain the initial $50,000 disbursement and how it relates to later disbursements. So the first $50,000 disbursement is what we call our unsecured amount. Now, many of the Pacific Palisadians who may have full insurance recovery and may need just a little bit for their personal property or just a little bit because of their deductibles, that may be all that you will need as far as a loan. And in that situation, there's no other signature documents that are required, like a mortgage, adding SBA as a loss payee to your insurance. And there's other secure documentation later on beyond the 50,000 because you're getting into what's called the secured portion of your loan. So how does it relate to later disbursements? So first off, if you as a Pacific Palisadian have not received the first 50,000, my suggestion is until you are able to build and being about a month away and Sue, and I've been hearing some of the great reports about some of the Pacific Palisadians already building on the alphabet streets. So that's great. As soon as you're able to actually get about 1 month out, of actually starting your build, that's when I would go ahead and request that initial $50,000 disbursement. Reason being, and remember that as soon as that initial $50,000 is dispersed, that 12-month clock of no payment, the 12-month clock of zero interest accrual will start. I've had even some Pacific Palisadians ask, "Well, Corey, can I return the 50,000 and restart my clock?" That's not possible. So those are, all the great questions. That's why it's so critical that if you haven't received your first 50,000 and you're not close to starting your rebuild, do not, I repeat, do not request a disbursement at this time. Now, what's going to happen with later disbursements is that as you can start your actual construction project, you're going to have different contracts. One of the things that I recommend is that you set this in two different categories. So there's great apps that keep track of finances and receipts. One of the ones I know I've used before is Expensify. You can have your dishwasher, your furniture, your clothes, take pictures of those receipts and essentially label that as SBA personal property. Then your bids from your contractors, your roofing materials, your sheetrock, your siding, your brick, all that, those are all real estate related. So put that under your SBA real estate. That way you have two different pockets of money, because if you notice on the loan authorization and agreement, it talks about your use of loan proceeds. You most likely have up to 500,000 for repair replacement of disaster damaged real estate, and then you have up to $100,000 to repair replace disaster damaged personal property, which may include any automobiles at that time. So that's why I want to make sure that when you get that first 50,000, make sure you're about 1 month out, because again, during that time frame, it may take about 2 to 3 weeks when you're communicating with the case manager. Hey, John, I'm ready for my first disbursement. We got all the permits. We're ready to break ground. Go ahead and request that disbursement. So that's what I would be my best recommendation for you. Third question. Please explain the 3-month time frame at the end of which your offer can expire if not extended. Again, this is so critical because I'm sure a number of you as Pacific Palisadians have started receiving emails about, from a case manager saying, "Oh, we need to disperse the money, or we're going, or we need to deactivate or make your loan inactive." In that situation, if you receive that email, and I'm sure a lot of you probably have received that email, the key thing to do is to respond, "Hey, John, please be advised that I would like to extend my loan disbursement period another 3 months. Please do not deactivate or make my loan inactive. I'm working through the permitting process. I'm doing whatever. I'm working with builders, whatever is necessary, but make sure that you put this in writing. Do not do a phone call. Please send a subsequent email, because SBA sent an email to you. Let them know that you would like to request an extension of your loan disbursement period, and just state we're not ready to build. We're working through the permits. We're working through builders. We need to make sure that we're ready to build, but please do not make my loan inactive." Fourth question. If I take the initial 50,000 and then need to wait 9 to 24 months to see if I need more, or if so, how much more will I need? When does my first payment occur? Well, again, this goes back to question number 3. The reason being, or actually question number 2, I apologize. The reason why I will say is, if you can, not receive the first 50,000, please, please, please do not request that first 50,000, because again, that 12-month clock will start. So let's just say we have Sue, who may have accidentally received her first disbursement in June. Well, in June of 2026, a year later, even if the home is not rebuilt, the actual payment of the loan will be on the full amount of the loan. So let's say it's a $500,000 loan, and I mean, I'm guessing monthly payments will be about maybe 3,000, 3,500. I'm not sure. Please don't quote me on that. But you will be paying the full interest and principal on the 500,000, even though you have not been advanced that the full amount of funds. So that's why I say it's very critical that if you can withhold taking the first 50,000, please, please, please do not, because as soon as you do, that 12-month clock does start. Now, if you need more funds, keep in mind, like I mentioned, you can always request increase in loan amounts for up to 2 years. And this is where it's so critical when I want to talk about mitigation. Because one of the things that I'm very well aware of is, and many of you all are aware of, is that 500,000, even with insurance, with the rebuild and the cost of labor and the cost of supplies, it may not it may not be enough to make you whole. So here's where you want to work with your builder, your contractor, to work on what's called mitigative measures. So instead of doing maybe a 30-year roof, maybe you do a metal roof. Instead of doing, wood shutters, maybe do metal shutters. Keep in mind that mitigation is not just for fire. Any mitigative measure can be for flood, can be for fire, can be for earthquake. So it's very critical to understand that you don't have to mitigate just for fire. You can actually mitigate for all perils. And that's a part of the new programs that SBA has offered. So let's say now we have $1 million total loss on the home. So now you can be approved for up to 20% of the total loss up to $500,000. So now again, let's say we're at 200,000 and we have, I'm sorry, 2 million, 2 million as far as the total loss. Now we can be approved for up to 400,000. But the question most people ask is, well, can I use this, Corey, to upgrade the kitchen? No. Can I use this, Corey, to build a swimming pool? No, that's not what mitigation funds are anticipated for. They are anticipated to rebuild and rebuild stronger, not cosmetically, rebuild stronger. So your contractor, if they're licensed and reputable, should be able to put together a mitigation plan with all the code improvements. And keep in mind that any of the code improvements with the city of Los Angeles or the county of Los Angeles, those could also be considered for mitigative measures. So it's very important that if you feel that 500,000 is not going to be enough, please, please, please put together a mitigation plan, submit it to your case manager, and request the increase in loan amount for up to the 20% of your total loss, up to a cap of $500,000. Question 5. If I end up needing only 200,000 of the 500,000, will I be paying on the entire 500,000 starting with the first payment? The answer to that question is, if you do not request a loan modification to actually reflect only borrowing $200,000 instead of the 500,000, yes, you would be paying on the entire 500,000. But again, anything that you submit to the federal government in writing has to be considered, and that will be called a loan modification request. So if you only need $200,000 of the 500,000, all you have to do is say, "Dear John, this is Sue. Please be advised that my insurance has covered the other 300,000 of my loan, the extra 300,000 that I needed. I no longer need 500,000. I would like to reduce my loan amount to 200,000, and please have my payments reflect the lower loan amount that I'm receiving." Simple as that. But you need to make sure that any request that you do, put it in writing. Please, please, please do not call the case manager and say, "I just want to, lower my loan amount and then this." Because keep in mind, they have a lot of files And unless they're right inside of your file at that time and put in that request, there's no guarantee that they're going to remember that. So that's why I say put everything in writing. That's why you've been receiving these emails, and you can also put it through your portal. You can send messages through your portal to your case manager. So if you don't request the lower loan amount, yes, you would be paying the actual the payment based on the full 500,000. And when does that first payment come? It comes at that end of the 12-month period. That's why it's so critical that if you are going to request that disbursement, understand that that 12-month clock starts immediately. Number 6, is it true that I will have access to my SBA funds only after I have exhausted my insurance money and can prove the construction is costing me more than what the insurance paid me? So here's the thing with this, that we will release the first $50,000 of your loan. Again, that is the unsecured portion of your loan. It is anticipated that if you want to get into the secured threshold, that you will do the requirements such as adding SBA as a loss payee on your insurance, also recording a mortgage, and then you also want to actually start the work. So if you have funds from insurance, that you, let's say you have five or $600,000, well, yes, it's anticipated that you're going to use your insurance money to actually start the project with the first 50,000. So once you get to the point, now, are we going to have to, the question is, are you going to have to exhaust all of it? No, but you will have to show significant progress in order for us to release more funds. We understand that some of the mortgage companies are withholding payments to where you're actually not able to access your insurance money. So that's where that first 50,000, where you can start getting the project going and then request the money, and then usually from there they'll actually release a draw from your mortgage company. So it is important that if you have insurance funds already sitting in the account, that yes, you would use those monies with that first 50,000 and continue to give progress updates to the your case manager so you can receive subsequent disbursements. Question 7.
Uh-oh.
What? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Sorry. We just have to, Corey, what you
Yes,
did is fabulous. We just have 2 more people reporting. So I can't remember how many questions I sent you,
you send me
but
2 more now, and I promise I'll be done.
okay.
Okay, and I'll do these quickly. What if after 24 months or so, I find I do not need an SBA disbursement? Will I still be paying on the loan? Question, no. If you have not received any funds, you will not be paying on the loan. If there's no money dispersed, you're not paying on the loan. What do I need to do on a regular basis to make sure that my loan will not be canceled? Communication is key. I would recommend sending a message through your portal or through email to your case manager at least twice a month, or at least one time per month. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood that communication. Please, please, please put it in writing. So I hope these answers helped you in regard to actually, oh, it's kind of dark. I hope these questions helped you in regard. I put my light on, in regard to your process. So, Sue, did you want to have questions or
No,
anything like that?
I think you did a fabulous job, and I'm going to ask you, unless you have a reason not to put your contact info, your email in the chat, so
Perfect.
that
Will
if
do.
somebody in the call has another question, um, they might be able to reach you. Thank you
Thank you.
so much, Corey. I really appreciate it.
You have a great day. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. Um, okay. Moving along to the Bureau of Street Lighting, representatives are going to tell us what's been done so far in the Palisades and what the plan is for the near future. And I have given you guys screen sharing capability, so if you want to do that, I'm
Thank you
not
so
sure
much.
who's going to speak.
I am Victor Tertius
Victor,
from
okay.
BSL. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'll be brief on these elements. Go back to the original destruction that happened in the Palisades, right? Our crews immediately right after the fires early on in February, our field operations division deployed to that area to try to ascertain to what extent our poles have been damaged. We did find heavy damage in certain areas, mild damage around the surrounding portions of the immediately concentrated fires. Damages really went through a wide range of types of damage, from structural to also blacking out the lenses on the street lights. So when you drive around, you might see some street lights that have like soot kind of baked into them. But our crews have deployed to make assessments on what we could do to try to recover some of those areas as soon as possible. Unfortunately, most of the areas we found that the circuits were damaged very heavily, and cut off some of the areas from the Palisades at the time. So we decided to deploy solar in some strategic areas. Some of you may have noticed some of the solar that was deployed initially. 44 solar lights were deployed in the Palisades area. And then later on, a second set of 11 solar lights were also deployed in those areas, trying to capture a couple of the areas that were starting to get repopulated. And at the same time, even though power was restored, there was so much damage in our circuit and poles that we could not actually bring those areas back up. So we tried to deploy in some of those areas as well. At the current moment, we've exhausted our materials in the sense of equipment, solar lights that we had in order to deploy. So we deployed a total of 55 in those areas early on. The next step was to further assess the extent of the damage and how many poles were affected at different levels in the Palisades area. So BSO worked with a contractor, Aero Solutions, and we had a report created which identified a certain number of poles, just over 400. After our assessment, that number grew to about 500 plus streetlights that are now recommended to be removed. With that initial assessment, we started to prepare all the reports required for FEMA, for the FEMA reimbursement. And the FEMA reimbursement will only, at this moment, the FEMA reimbursement covers a subset of those lights that will be reimbursed, right? Now, that subset is what we're working on now and trying to prioritize. So many of the questions that are coming in from FEMA, and we're getting quite a few questions, right, at different levels, and we're trying to respond as soon as possible so we can move forward to getting a final determination of reimbursement funds for these poles to start replacing poles in the Palisades areas. In parallel with that, our teams are continuing assessments, doing inspections in the Palisades areas in order to determine the right approach on how to rebuild those streetlights in those areas. There's a few components, like I mentioned, that have been affected, which are structural components. In some of the areas, you'll notice that the concrete poles have cracks that are actually visible now due to expansion of steel inside of them, where it doesn't look like they have much damage, but the temperature caused damage throughout the areas. So at this moment, our focus is to respond to all questions that FEMA brings to our table, and we're responding as soon as possible to try to move that process forward for reimbursement. We expect that at the current moment, we have replied to all the questions that FEMA has requested of us. So now the ball's in their court. They should be responding back to us through IEM, who's helping us out and assisting us with all the reporting and documenting all of the items that FEMA is requesting. At the current state of the Palisades, most of the areas that we will be initially deploying and recovering will be a lot of the local streets, which you could, I guess, if you picture it, identifying it's more of the residential, right? The residential areas, and then moving outwards towards more of the major streets, Palisades and others like that. But that doesn't mean we haven't recovered quite a few lights. Working with DWP, our crews have actually recovered multiple lights in some of the areas that were originally cut off that may not have had experienced as much damage, but the fires created severed many circuits, so there weren't any lights up up in some of those areas, but we've been able to recover multiple lights in the Palisades, in the near Palisades Boulevard going up, and also in the higher mountain areas where the fires luckily didn't create as much damage. But some of those areas have been recovered, and you'll see that sporadically the Bureau of Street Lighting has been able to recover quite a few lights. And we continue to work with DWP and some of our other partners to continue recovering some of those lights. But at this point, we're at the stage where we need to move into really finishing our request and our application process with FEMA, so we can look at the funds that will be needed in order to deploy our strategy on recovering and replacing all the poles within the Palisades areas. Those are some of the obvious. I know I went quickly, and I'm trying to give like an overall idea of where we're at with our planning at this point. Our engineers are working hard, still inspecting up there, and have noticed multiple things that have been also reported to FEMA, which was requested by FEMA, which is structural damage and structural foundations. Some of these things are not just going to be removing a pole and putting a new pole back on the foundations. Some of those foundations were built in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And they do not meet current code requirements. So we actually can't just place it back on some of those foundations. They're deteriorated to some extent. So we've already shared that information with FEMA as well as was requested. And our structural engineer inside finished those calculations, and that has also been sent forward to them. So at this moment, we're still working with IEM on identifying any other items that they may need, so we can try to obviously move this forward so we can start deploying and our strategies for rebuilding the Palisades areas. I'll leave it at that for right now as a presentation of the overall scope of where we're at. I'm more than happy, and I have some colleagues here as well supporting me in order to answer any questions you might have or any concerns you might have as well.
I have one. I'm almost afraid to ask because I know you're doing a lot of the rebuilding work. What about neighborhoods like the alphabet streets that really have never had streetlights, that have been dark for all these years? Is there any chance at all of getting a few streetlights added, or is that not on your program?
There's two elements to that. We do have a way through our community impact division, which the community can actually reach out to our community impact division in order to request lights for that area. And there'll be the division manager, Ansar Mustafa, would give them information on how that can be done. Now, the other side of it is, can we do it as part of this rebuild, right? And as part of the rebuild, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to. FEMA, the way FEMA is actually dispersing those funds, it's supposed to be like for like, right? Anything that it's seen as in addition to, or not covered or not required through by structural codes, right? Like the foundations, as I was mentioning earlier. At this moment, that wouldn't be possible as part of that strategy. Yeah.
That's what I figured. Okay. Okay, just curious, is your contact info in the chat or someone from your team?
Let me see. I'll go ahead and put my contact info in the chat, put my email there.
Okay.
And you can send it my way. And if anybody, for example, for the alphabet streets, if they want to request something, I can forward that request to the proper division.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Does anyone have a quick question for Victor before we go? Somebody does. Is it Sharon?
Yeah. Hey, Victor, just real quick. I don't know if this is your area of expertise, but Temescal just reopened on Wednesday, and the street lamps that are there going all the way up the road are not functioning. So I was just wondering if we could get those on, because it's a very dark canyon and it would be very helpful.
You said Temescal, right?
Yes, Temescal Road, PCH all the way up to Sunset along that road. It's been closed since, the fire. And they just reopened it this Wednesday.
Okay. I'll check in. I'll check in with our team. I know that I'm being told that we're taking notes right now about that. We'll have to come back to you on that. We got to see what the reason might be. Like I said, we're working with DWP to restore, as they're restoring everything up there. And when I say services, I mean the street lighting services. So if we haven't gotten to that, or they haven't finalized the repairs on that service point, then we'll continue to work with them to try to expedite the repairs on that side of it. The other thing is we got to see at what was below that circuit. So sometimes the damage isn't up there, right? But we get cut off because of where the damage occurred. So if we have some areas where, I'm going to put it this way, our wires were cooked inside the conduits due to the heat, that requires a much more extensive deployment at this time with our current resources. We can try to see if it's a minimal deployment that would be required for maybe a section. That might be something under maintenance that can be handled and bring those areas back up. But we will look into that area and have our teams kind of investigate.
Yeah, it's a dark, route at night, and also it is a burn scar area. So, and it used to be home to a lot of unhoused individuals, a lot of camps in there. So the sooner we can get lighting on that, we'd be really appreciative on that concern. So
excellent. And we will take note of that and bring this back to our team.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our last presenter today. Bob Riddle, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Sue.
Hi. Okay, you're up.
Hi, thank you everyone for holding on and still being here. My name is Bob Riddle. In my previous life, I used to be at Crossroads School. I spent 38 years at Crossroads School, the last 13 as head of school. I see a few familiar faces here, some former parents. And since retiring 3 years ago, I've been doing some consulting for nonprofits when I'm not checking off my travel bucket list. And about 4 or 5 days after the fires, I was approached by a family foundation, a small family foundation out of Orange County. And they reached out to me and they said, we want to do something to support the people who've been impacted by the fires. And we'd love to talk to you and really brainstorm what are the things that the government may not be doing, but that people might need. And because the nonprofit is really focused on 3 areas, and mental health and wellness, education, and arts programming, we came up with this big idea to create a center, a physical space here in Santa Monica. And if all goes well, we're having our final inspection on Monday, and we'll be opening our doors soon thereafter. And the place is called the Palisades Community Renewal Center. And in that space, it's designed first and foremost to bring people back together, a place to hang out, social activities, different events will be taking place there. But we will also be partnering with a couple of other nonprofits. The first is Maple Counseling. We'll be providing free therapy, both individual and small group sessions by licensed clinical technicians, therapists, not unlicensed folks getting their hours, but these will be licensed therapists. We'll be offering free therapy there. And then we'll be also providing free arts programming because we know the arts can be very therapeutic. And so we're partnering with an organization called PCRC. Some of you may be familiar with it. It was actually founded by Crossroads 35 years ago. And they're going to be offering free visual arts and performing arts classes for youth and adults. So we will be opening our doors officially on September 6th. We're going to be hosting an open house that will be open to the public. Drop in. We hope you all come, and we'll have some food, some entertainment, and it'll give you a chance to see the space, meet some of the teachers, and the director of the program, Juliet Curry, who couldn't be here tonight, but she will be starting with us on Monday. And then the arts classes we're offering, initially they're going to be after-school classes so that kids from the neighboring schools, and I know many of the schools have relocated all around where our site is, will be able to come and take some free arts classes. And those will start the week of September 15th. So I'm going to put into the chat our websites. If you go onto the websites, you'll be able to, sorry, it's hard to talk and write at the same time. You'll be able to sign up on a mailing list. And so that you get information about the open house and other activities that they're having there as well. And then if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll put my email address in here as well. We hope that this becomes we signed a 4.5-year lease. So our plan is to be here for the long term to help provide whatever support and help we can in the areas of mental health, arts programming, education, and community building. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention is we've hired a director, but we're currently looking for a full-time administrative assistant, receptionist, office manager. So if you know anyone that might be interested, please email me and let me know as well. And we hope you'll be able to come by and take advantage of the space and the programming.
Thank you so much. And when you have a little poster or something for us to send out, a notice, if you send it to us, we'll send it out in our MailChimp updates.
Will
About
do.
the
I'll
thing.
do that, Sue. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Sue, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Thank you, Bob. What day is the open house and what time?
The open house is on Saturday, September 6th. I believe the time will be from 12 to 5. But once we have the flyer ready, we will send that out for you.
Okay.
And I should mention that the center, our plan right now is the center will be open Tuesday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then on Saturdays from like 9 to 5. And then we'll expand as needed if there's more interest and folks want more programming, we will expand as much as we're able to.
Okay. Thank you so much. Everybody, we did it. I don't know how we did it, but we did it.